Hello everyone, and thank you to be there again to a new episode for Meet at the Junction. And today I'm pleased to be with Émile Dubié, the CEO of XDeFi Wallet and now Ctrl, so CTRL Wallet. Emile, pleased to meet you. I think it's been a long time. We already meet together, so it's good to have you there for a little interview. Potentially, can you just go ahead a bit of your project and who are you? What you did like in the middle, so people get to know you a bit more.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, man. And yeah, we know each other for a little while now and been working together for a few years. So yeah, I'm the CEO of Ctrl Wallet, formerly called XDeFi Wallet. That was the very first multi-chain wallet extension that we launched 4 years ago. We started working on it 5 years ago. The idea was for us to build a product that is fully multi-chain from the ground up. And that's what we've been working on since the early days. Today, we have a team of 20 plus people. We support 2,300 chains, and we have built a revamped version of the original multi-chain extension, which is called Control, but also released the mobile app at the end of last year. And yeah, we are continuing to ship some product features that try to make self-custody as accessible as it gets to anyone.
That's a pretty good I guess like a recap. So as you mentioned, like I guess like it was like kind of like the first multi-chain wallet. So if people just like hear about that, like just to clarify, there was like wallet like MetaMask, there was like a Kepler, Phantom. They were like very recent, only having one chain. So MetaMask only like for EVMs, Solana only for Solana, Phantom for Solana, and obviously Kepler for the Cosmos chains. So on your side, XDeFi was at this time already having like few other one, but it was having like Bitcoin and like few UTXOs like Dogecoin as well, right?
Yeah, so the first version we released, we were supporting Ethereum mainnets. I mean, layer 2s were not really a thing back then. Like there was hardly any activity on Polygon, for instance. And yeah, so the first three networks that we supported were Ethereum, Bitcoin, and the Binance Bitcoin chain.
So there wasn't like any Bitcoin wallet at this time. Like there wasn't like X there.
No, I mean the new kind of like the new generations of Bitcoin wallets were non-existing. I think we're I'm pretty sure we're the first multi-chain wallet extension supporting Bitcoin. There might have been one other, but yeah, otherwise than that, it was mainly like mobile apps or like.
Oh yeah, desktop wallet. I think like there was like few one like for specifically Bitcoin. Oh, okay, pretty interesting. So I think like you're the first one we get like as a CEO like working like for this interview. So how does it look like a basic like day-to-day job? Like what is like when you just like wake up? What do you do? Maybe it's a long day.
No, when I wake up, I take my dog out. Like, I think every day is different. Ultimately, my role I've always been really like product focused as a CEO. So I'm the CEO, but I'm kind of also the CPO. So always a strong focus on products. Otherwise than that, I'm just trying to jump in wherever the company needs me. So whenever there is something to be addressed, like whenever there are like some issues, doesn't matter if it's on product or on another topic, I jump in and try to help the team to think around how to fix that. So yeah, it varies. It's very different from one day to another, I would say.
I can imagine. It's not every day the same. Like as you have like plenty of chains, like I guess like potentially is like having like a new update like on each like we did have like recently like a guy like from OpenOcean and he was like managing like these things with like 40 chain and saying like oh yeah we have always like to jump like like from one to another. So I guess like for you it's even like harder. You say like how much you say like chain supported?
Yeah, I mean, like, so I didn't even know there were that many chains, if I'm being honest. But like, technically, we support 2,300 chains. I think it's more than that now. So we support
That's
like
crazy.
a large number of chains natively, such as the major EVMs. We're actually releasing native support for 6 additional EVMs next week.
Oh, okay.
Other UTXOs like Dog, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash. We're supporting obviously Tron, Solana, and a lot of Cosmos chains natively. But obviously, I mean, it feels like there is a new chains being, created every week for the past 2 to 3 years now, both on the EVM side and the Cosmos side. So we took the decision to build a custom RPC that supports adding manually like any Cosmos and EVM chain. So technically, we support all EVM chains and all Cosmos networks.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of chains. That's a lot of chains, right? And then like we try to prioritize based on user feedback and how hard it is for us to, I mean, for instance, adding like natively like an EVM chain is much simpler for us than adding like, for instance, UI or Atos or yeah.
Yeah, completely like different like a VM. So I can understand. Like actually, I don't think there is like much wallet that does that. Like I think you're pretty much like the first one. Because even like Coupler also like few like other wallet that I have in mind, they don't generally like have like this customization. Like it generally like few ones that they support. Um, like specifically like they have their ecosystem and then they started like to introduce like few other one. But still it's like yeah, far I guess like from this vision. So kind of like starting like to see all of the things you are like having in your head. So it gives me like the question like because here like we are kind of like crypto native, so we understand like what we are like talking to each other. But I don't know, like just you go like outside like to a dinner or something like that, or like a family dinner, a family time. How do you just like introduce yourself? Maybe just like as a founder, but if you have like a bit to explain like to someone that is like non-crypto native, because for him like
Yeah.
it's very hard.
So it depends who I'm talking to and how versed in terms of finance perspective. But I mean, like in general, what I say is that like we have built a product that allows you to essentially hold your financial assets, have full sovereignty over these assets, meaning that like we can't access your assets, we can't freeze them, we can't move them on your behalf, etc. So the way sometimes I simplify it is like it's like a decentralized bank account whereby you have essentially like full control over like whatever you add to this bank account. That's kind of how I make it as simple as possible for people that have absolutely no crypto background. And then when they ask questions, I try to explain some basic like blockchain concepts and self-custody concepts so they understand. Generally like it's trying to simplify it as much as possible because you can't expect anyone, but it does resonate with a lot of people, right? And I think like one thing that I use, for instance, that is quite like that helps to explain I guess like some of the advantages of using a self-custody wallet is, for instance, cross-border payments, and especially for people that some family abroad or work in a business that is interacting with companies that are not necessarily like based in the same country or in the European Union, and try to explain that like, look, this is much simpler to use this and do instant transfer in stable coins, for instance, in seconds without having to pay incredible fees or to wait for 3 to 5 business days for transfer to be completed. And this generally resonates really well with people. That's one thing. But yeah, trying to simplify the what we do as much as I can, and then like I want to deep dive and get into a more like in-depth conversation about what self-custody is. I'm always happy to do so.
So basically kind of like a gateway to the financial like ecosystem. So like starting maybe like with crypto, like at first, because like specifically like a wallet dedicated like to it, but maybe like at some point your idea is like moving into like something more like, as you say, like a bank access like to anything. So it could be just like a fiat part and a crypto part. So kind of like a bank for both. Is it like the goal, like maybe like for wallet at some point?
I think that's actually the ambition of a lot of large wallets. And some of our competitors in the latest rounds that they went for, like actually like this is what they pitched to essentially build an alternative to digital banks, neobanks, as Revolut, Monzo, and 26, etc. So yes, that's I believe like the ambition of a lot of wallets. It's our ambition too. I think ultimately there is an opportunity for crypto wallets to replace neobanks, and for that there is a need for wallets to be well integrated with strategic on and off-ramp providers that are allowing people to on and off ramp seamlessly, because ultimately people still need fiat to do a lot of things in their everyday life. But I think if you look at, for instance, Mini App from Opera, which is in my opinion an absolute genius move, and how they've fully abstracted any crypto concept from the app that is basically in the Opera Mini in Africa. It's actually like the first. I mean, there are a few other examples, but like that's one of the really good example of how to bank the unbanked. And it's not just a meme, I guess. I think this is something that is becoming a reality, especially in LATAM and in Africa and in Southeast Asia and Asia in general. So I think it's not crazy to expect that this will happen as well, like in the US and in Europe, like a long term. But like check Mini App. Mini App is really interesting from Opera. I think they absolutely killed it. And the way they do it is that they essentially abstract any crypto concept whereby you don't need to deal with a seed phrase, you don't need to deal with gas, which is what we're doing already for crypto friendly users. But that's also like a tech that we can adapt and yeah, to serve the purpose of like building a new bank. Obviously, what we're doing is a little bit more complex because we support a lot of different chains. So there's still some concept that needs to be understood by the users. But I think like there is a future in which there could be potentially like two versions of control, one that is like really focused like on this type of service, and the other that is more focused on serving like crypto native users with a simple bridge between the two versions, and that allow users to do anything they want to do on chain, whether it's like, you know, trading shitcoins or interacting with DeFi apps, storing their assets, etc.
That's true. Like, I actually like it gives me like an idea. Like, but like banks, like in general, they don't support like much like currencies. It's just like generally like one, like you're in France, it's like one bank like with euro. It doesn't support like much currencies. I guess like on your side, you decided like kind of like trying to be like the international bank that support like worldwide like currencies. I would say like for crypto. But is it like the goal, like potentially to, I don't know, there is like some project like Bridge, for example. Is this like things you plan like to have like implemented like within to just like manage this kind of like gap between like fiat and cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, absolutely. So not Bridge per se, because we have another partner, and I can't talk too much about it now.
No
But
worries.
similar type of tech. I think like yeah, I think at some point people will be more and more comfortable to actually hold stable coins and pay, and there will also be like more opportunities to pay for real life item. There is already like in plenty of different countries, like look at Argentina, for instance, and Nigeria. But I think more and more people will be more comfortable with holding stables and basically like pay with stables in general. Now, yeah, of course, we will integrate with solutions such as Bridge because realistically speaking, people need to have like a option.
Yeah, and actually this is pretty interesting because I think like what's like been like the last year, essentially like people were like starting to open like so like in terms of wallet, there was like let's say like Phantom, Capitalista, so they are just working in a specific area, and now they open it like a kind of like some paths to be like a multi-chain wallet as you. And I guess like it gives me like a question like how do you connect like all of this? Like you need like some kind of like interoperability, so it's kind of like the subject of like 2024 and still like in 2025. How do you connect like all of this chain? And I guess like XDeFi and Control did have like some first shot like a very soon in this middle. It reminds me like maybe it was like with Torchain, right? Was it like something like directly you wanted like to take a pass in it? Like, and do you think like it's kind of like the potentially like the future for wallet? Just have to this interoperability between chains and potentially also like the gap within like the fiat currencies. So double gateway, double interoperability.
Yeah, so I mean, the way I look at things is we're seeing more and more activity on chain compared to. I think a lot of people are slowly moving from centralized exchanges and custodial solutions in crypto into like a self-custody solutions. And ultimately, if you want to provide an alternative to the people that are already onboarded into crypto but via centralized exchange, you need to create like an experience that is fully chain abstracted, because when people are interacting with an exchange, they don't really care about chains, they care about the assets, they care about like buying assets, holding on these assets, selling it for a profit basically, and all the concept of, again, seed phrase, gas, etc., like are fully abstracted. So I guess that's the first thing, and that's why like in the first place we wanted to support as many chains as possible, so people don't need to use several wallet providers to manage all their crypto net worth. So I guess that's the first thing, right? Being multi-chain, and then like abstracting the concept of chains from the UI. It took a lot of time. When we started designing XDeFi wallet in the first place, there were no benchmarks. We had kind of like, you know, design, and we were kind of like in like walking into uncharted territories. I think like we improved a lot since then, and we actually set some of the UX standard for multi-chain interfaces to an extent. Now, the second step for us was to create an onboarding that is as seamless as possible, with options for users to generate like a wallet using social logins, and then further down the road, like create what we call the gas tank that allows users to use USDC to pay gas across literally any chains, not just EVM. It works a little bit differently than a paymaster, for instance, on the EVM side. The combination of all these different like product elements is what creates, in my opinion, true chain abstraction. And I believe chain abstraction happens like across all type of chain, not just the EVMs or Cosmos. It has to be agnostic, otherwise not necessarily like true chain abstraction. So that's what we try to achieve. I think this is what will achieve like more and more wallets as more tech solutions are created and emerge and allow wallets to build on top of it. Realistically, when we started, it wasn't really possible for us to use external providers because they were just not catering for the need of multi-chain products. So a lot of things we had to build ourselves, and that includes Junction that you're now building with Nabil. And obviously, this is a big part of it, a big part of the interoperability side of things. When we built in the first place XDeFi Wallet, it was to support the Torchain ecosystem and to allow people to essentially interact with all the chains supported by the Torchain protocol in a seamless fashion within a single product. So Junction is the result of the routing API that we started building at XDeFi Wallet and then at Ctrl Wallet. And I can go on and on, by the way. Like, I know you have other questions probably on this, but I'm just like maybe front running.
I don't have any question, so please go ahead.
So, I mean, like the first step was to support as many chains as we can. The second step was to create like a UX that is abstracting as possible the different characteristics of all these chains in a way that people have a coherent user experience across all these different chains supported by the wallet. And then it was about like allowing people to move funds from an ecosystem to another from within the wallet. And obviously from dApps that they can connect to, but like from within the wallet specifically, by creating this routing API that is aggregating different type of providers such as Torchain, Sockets, OpenOcean, Uniswap, Cross now, and a lot of these other like bridges or.
Yeah, there's plenty.
There are a lot. So the idea, I think now we achieve that because we support a lot of chains. We have a gas tank that allows people to bridge seamlessly without having to deal with gas management, which is really important. I think that like if you're a heavy user or even if you're just like a user and you're trying to move from a chain to another, like you always had like at some point like an issue with gas management and probably stuck from blocks from bridging like because of it. So the combination of supporting a lot of chains, having like a seamless gas management and supporting a lot of different like venues and routes that allows people to migrate assets from a chain to another is what creates this kind of like chain abstracted seamless experience and basically create interoperability. And I think like I mean obviously I have like some insights about what you're building now with Junction. There will be more and more solutions that I would say are pragmatic in the way the tech is treated to facilitate like transfer of funds between, for instance, Solana and Bitcoin and EVMs, which is going to probably be a little bit different than what we've seen to date. And I'm looking forward to that because even now, most bridges are not catering for that. And there are a few of them that are pretty good, but in general, I think like that there was still like a lot of improvement from a UX perspective that are needed to create like seamless interoperability, and we're not there yet, but it's coming. It's coming with Junction.
Yeah, I mean, like for working a bit like in this middle, you always have a good solution, but it doesn't like handle like everything. So it's just like kind of like few roads, but doesn't lead like into the city you want like to go. So you need like another road to get into it. So you have like to aggregate like all of them. So it's a bit like complex in the end, but it's a good gap, I guess, like for wallets like yours, like the multi-chain wallet, to have like this kind of like access for the users, so they can just like exchange a chain to another. And on your side, you can just like abstract like all of this, just have a fluent, I would say like UX, so they can just like interact and sign everywhere. Like this is something like most of people, I guess, like forgot, but a wallet like is a UI, so like an interface they are like playing with, but it's generally like a signer. So it's kind of like you're adding all the possibility like to sign transaction across networks. You could just like abstract like everything. Just okay, we just allow you like to sign, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, the first function of a wallet is to allow people to sign transactions. Right? That's the very first wallet.
Yeah. It gets me like to my next question, because like there is plenty of things like in Ctrl Wallet, during like all the things you build, like starting with XDeFi. So you did have like this management of like many chains, like the first to do it, like so something very complex. So other like would have like done it like directly. There was like this API to create like kind of like this interoperability like between the chains, and there was like all of the things you implemented like inside. So what is like potentially like the biggest challenge you did have like in your, I would say like builder life, building this product? Was it
routing API, the routing API specifically?
no, specifically like
there were two main challenges. The first one is like from a UX UI perspective, because like as I said earlier, like we're kind of walking into uncharted territories. So no benchmark always makes it harder for you to come up with the right solutions from a UX perspective. That's the first thing. How do you abstract like different characteristics of each chain with supports without creating some UX hurdles? That's not simple. It takes a lot of time and thinking. The second is from a backend perspective, because and again that's also something I said earlier, but like to give a little bit more context around that. When we started building API providers, we're not catering for our needs, and originally we started combining a lot of different APIs. And that created a different point of failures. The developer experience was pretty poor as well for my team. Then we switched to actually building all our own indexes, which required like a massive backend team. And at some point we realized that like we just wouldn't be able to maintain all of that. I mean, that we're a wallet interface. We're not an API provider, and like we kind of became an API provider, building our own indexes, indexing everything from block zero, building our own TX classifiers, our own routing API, and that was not sustainable. And like little by little, we started switching to API providers that finally were supporting like our needs, and that's what we did with Covalent, Moralis, and then like Junction. So yeah, I mean, like obviously. Yeah, like the space wasn't ready for people to build milk-chain product when we started. And that put us in a situation where we have to build ourselves stuff that we shouldn't be building ourselves because we should spend time on other things. But it was what it was, and we did it.
Yeah, actually, you have like
we have some indexes actually that we still run, but not all of them, not all of the chains.
Could sell them directly like to few competitors. I guess like if they want like specifically like the path you did take was like on UTXO side. So like this Bitcoin, Dogecoin, which is like something like you see Bitcoin sometimes like in few wallet, but like Dogecoin, Litecoin, and like Bitcoin Cash is something like very like unusual. You don't have index for that, right?
Well, we do have some stuff. We do have some stuff around UTXOs actually. UTXOs, Solana, and the rest we're using external providers.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
We actually do have indexes around the UTXOs itself.
All right. I think like I have a funny question like going with that I asked to the last guest. It's basically imagine you have like this 1.4 billion, like they are yours, and someone like did a hack them. So you just like woke up, go to your wallet, and like the funds are like evaporated. So you don't have them anymore. Which drink like first you're gonna take just like to step down a bit, just to realize like wow, what the fuck is happening? Like which drink you're gonna take? Like the last one did take like a good gin, just like a gin.
I don't really drink anymore, so I'll just keep my head cold and try to answer as fast as I can and deal with the mess that it creates, because that's absolutely like especially when you use a fund, so you want to act fast and keep your head cold. So I don't really drink anymore.
Just the cold water and straight back to the work. That's actually like a very good one. Yeah. I mean, like this is like a lot. I realized that working like in this middle, having like tons of chain like to catch up. Do you have like something you use like on your side, like a hobby, something you do like outside of like the crypto sphere, just like to get outside of it, relax, evaporate the stress? Because it's kind of like very intense. It's been like you say like 4 or 5 years you're like working in this middle. You looks like pretty healthy to me. So is there like any secret for that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think there is any secret. I think everyone is different. Some people are more resilient than others. I like to spend time with my family whenever I can. I think that helps a lot. I mean, we already talked about it, but I box. I've been boxing for a long time, and that's something that helps me too. I love skiing. I love walking with my dog and doing simple things and trying to turn off the phone whenever I can. And it's not necessarily easy because it's a 24/7 job. And even when you go on holidays, when you have that kind of like business, you never really on holidays. I like it. I tend to be a little bit hyper and bored easily, so I like being crypto. Otherwise, I wouldn't, quite frankly. But yeah, sometimes a little bit intense, especially for the family. Yeah, you need to be available at all times. But I guess this is something you sign for when you start, and if you don't understand what you signed for, you probably shouldn't.
That's actually like a very good answer. Like taking time off, like going outside, see the family. So getting like into like something a bit more like realistic outside of like the space. So slowing down is actually like a pretty good one. Getting back quickly to the space, there is like many different like narrative there was like these memes, like the things happening, like the AI, all of this stuff. So do you have like, in your opinion, maybe like one overrated, like, I don't know, like a narrative in DeFi that is like for you, like something completely overrated. So people are like speaking about it like it's the new thing, but it's not really something.
I mean, I guess there are a few. I'd say maybe, I don't know if it's like people, everyone talking about it, but at least like a lot of people trying to race for it. It's everyone is trying to build like meme coin launchpads now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not everyone is going to be pump.fun, and we've seen the same thing in the wallet industry as well. Like after people realizing that MetaMask was printing money with their swaps, ultimately like now like everyone is trying to build a new
Fun.
kind of pump.fun on different chains or cross chain with different things. A few of them are actually pretty interesting, but otherwise than that, I guess like the meta is kind of like, I mean, it's like when you're late in a meta, it's never good, and by the time you ship, the meta is half dead, and that's never a good business model to go with. So I guess meme coin launchpads is one of them. I'm sure there are some others.
It's a pretty good one. I think like it's getting like very, very slow down, and there was like many teams like as you mentioned, there was like starting to work on that. Unfortunately, few one did have time to chip. The rest is just like still. So maybe there will be like a new bomb, but for the moment, I guess it's pretty hard like to launch for them. Okay, I mean completely overrated. I completely agree with that. It wasn't. It's for sure like not the best time to launch like something like similar to that. So if you're planning like to launch a meme coin, you potentially need to wait a bit, just like the market to recover, because people have been, I guess, like a bit tired of that, and completely just like the opposite. So do you see like something like we are like kind of like underestimating something like very strong that is coming, and you think it's like the bull narrative of the, I don't know, like future months or years?
Yeah, I don't know if we completely underestimating them, because like now people start to actually talk more and more about it. But I mean, it's been a while. I talk about it. I think cross-border payment is one of the
Yeah,
best
cross-border.
of crypto, and stable coins now are very robust. And ultimately, I think it's literally going to change like the international trade landscape. Yeah, really bullish on cross-border payment solution. RWAs, I know it's boring and I know everyone is talking about it, but like there are much more than just tokenizing T-bills. There are plenty of ways to use like RWAs to improve how, I mean, like I think it's like much cheaper to issue on chain as opposed to in the traditional finance world, assets in general, and RWAs are going to play a key role there. So I think like we will see a lot of things that are interesting in the next few years. And I mean, consumer DeFi, I think there are more and more like now interfaces. And I think to an extent, wallets are not going to disappear, but kind of with more consumer focused interfaces. Like, as in, if you want to strive today and you're a new wallet and you try, it's going to be really hard for you to compete with the large and existing players. You're going to need to have more of a consumer focused approach with a specific focus on something niche that you're trying to address. Like, for instance, Moonshot did recently with memes.
Oh, actually, it reminds me like there was like a new race like recently, like a legend, kind of like they're making like a mobile app, like the ex people from Compound. So basically, they want like a mobile wallet just like to access like kind of like.
Yeah, it looks a little bit like a design.
It remind me of something, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, with a lot of like a design. But yeah, it is like ultimately, I don't think they
It's
do
good. You kind of like put some standards. So if people are replicating, it's kind of like
the
good. I mean,
the problem is that the barrier to entrance to this business is going lower and lower, and all of these different interfaces that are trying to compete with the existing wallets are not that complicated to build anymore, and they're going to have like a massive user acquisition issue, and that's all going to be about like how good they are at marketing, how good they are at growth, and I think like a lot of the companies that are being funded right now, like I'm not going to give names, but like that are focusing on these narratives are going to be having a hard time once they ship. That's just reality. I'm not saying all of them. I'm sure some of them are genius in terms of marketing growth, and that will do they will do really well. But it's going to be hard because I think personally I'm really interested about like leveraging blockchain technologies to solve real world user cases, and more this is something that interests me, and that's why I was referring to RWAs and cross border payments.
yeah, we're
I think
getting there.
Yeah, I think we're getting there, and
I mean, like it's getting me like to the question that I wanted like perfectly. It's amazing. Like the things are just like getting where I want. Um, so basically, as you mentioned, like the real problem like with that is like how do you manage like to grow like, into like this term like of users acquisition? So you mentioned like DeFi like control is like 700K on it. So how do you just like did manage like this kind of like success and how do you just like drive it?
yeah, I think like the first, I mean, we were early in the wallet space. We were the first multi-chain wallet extension, so that helped. We were early into specific ecosystems, which helped as well. So we never got like all the user base of one given ecosystem like Phantom did with Solana or Kepler did with Cosmos, but we still did well across the board and in that fashion. We tried a lot of different things from a growth perspective, whether it's like paid acquisition and a few other like partnerships via which we launched with interfaces and smaller ecosystem that helped for us to build our user base. And then, communicating on socials, that helped a lot. And then it was like, quite frankly, like organic. If we want to continue to grow, we need to access new distribution channels. And, I mean, it's public. We're currently discussing acquisitions. Ultimately for us, if we really want to go out there and if you look at like the largest multi-chain wallet today, they're basically all backed by a centralized exchange. So Coinbase, Trust Wallet, OKX, BitGet, and obviously they have like a preferential access to a massive distribution channel, which helped a lot. So for us, the strategy is to, either being acquired or like have a close relationship with, doesn't necessarily need to be a centralized exchange, but like a product, a company that has a lot of users that are currently not on chain. And there is an obvious synergy between these potential companies and us, which are, the company wants to go on chain, they want to keep owning the user relationship, and they want a partner that is already on chain and focusing on self-custody solution. And I think this is how we will acquire a lot of users in the future. That's the best and most efficient strategy.
Actually, it's pretty interesting because it's not something like very like usual. People are not like transparent like as this. They're saying like, oh yeah, actually we realized that we need like to change a bit like the strategy. So get like either like acquire, either like just get like something like with a lot of users that want to be on chain. It's kind of like a good approach, I guess, because it gives you like a kind of like a way to connect with some people that you potentially will never get in contact with. Because I mean, like there is plenty of like brand like outside of like crypto. I'm pretty sure are looking a way to connect them like into like this area. They don't have like the knowledge, they don't have the team. So I guess like looking at that, maybe if you're here, if you're like a company outside of this, a big one, if you hear this little interview, feel free to jump with Emile. He will be very happy, I guess, like to discuss that. And actually, it makes a lot of sense. Like the middle is like kind of like a battle area, and you don't have like much choice. And actually, like this is actually also like maybe why you also like decided the kind of like jump of Junction outside of like control. Can you potentially just like give a little more like detail, like how did it went? Why this decision? I mean,
Yeah,
like it was like between us, but still, like
no,
people
I
doesn't
know.
know.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, same idea than with the indexes. Ultimately, when you don't have the resources or the bandwidth to allocate into building products that are already existing outside of what we do. So last year, we discussed internally, obviously with you and Nabil, and there were two options. The first one is we migrate to, I don't know, Li-Fi, Rango, another third-party providers, because we didn't have the resources and we didn't want to put the bandwidth into continuing to develop a routing API because we couldn't scale it and we didn't have like as many people as we needed to actually scale it. Every time you add a provider, you need to work on the new version that this provider releases, add more routes, optimize, etc. So we just didn't have the bandwidth or the resources to continue to do so. And that's when we spoke with you and Nabil, and you guys said like, look, we'd love to build this ourselves and focus solely on the routing API externally. So for us, it was a no-brainer because it was either that or we would basically like deprecate it. And you guys have done an exceptional job on that, and it's been like really easy to work with you as well. And obviously we know each other well. But I think that was the right decision. Ultimately, we're a wallet, and we should focus on being a wallet. We used not to have the choice to do that because we had to build some of this infra ourselves. But now it's different time, and we took the decision to just focus on being a wallet. So that's why Junction.
Pretty good. Cannot agree more. Huh? So yeah, I mean, like potentially like a last question because like actually it's kind of like a good advice, like saying like sometimes you have like too much things and you have like potentially like to refocus on specifically like what you are like doing. So if you would like give like an advice, like I don't know, like as a founder, as like a builder, as like whatever you want, to a new person that wants like to jump in, potentially create like his own company, just like jump into the middle, but building like a crypto and Web3. Would you have like maybe like an advice like outside of like focus on specifically like your job and don't diversify too much?
Yeah, I mean, so first, don't focus on the current trending narrative, because if you start now and the narrative is already ongoing, it means that like by the time you ship, it won't be a thing anymore. And I would say like focus on something niche. Try to identify a gap that is existing and that no one else is addressing. And even if some people are addressing it, that's fine. You can build better. But focus on something really specific and try to solve this really well before anything else, right? Try to understand like the market size of this niche and figure out like ahead of time your capacity to address that specific market that you've identified. And then like surround yourself with people that complete yourself, and don't necessarily go for like a large team, even if you raise like a large amount of money at first. Try to scale slowly instead of like too fast. And with the right people, I think like, try to remain agile and don't context switch too much, and focus on one single thing and be laser focused on that and do it really well. Solve a given user case and then expand and do more things. That's what I would do myself if I was to start again. Focus on something very specific, nail it, and then expand into something else. But don't try to do everything. Don't do
Actually, it's a very good advice, like, because like when you're just like trying to grow like too fast, you're gonna have like potentially like not the right people. You're not gonna be able like to have the head like on all of the things. So yeah, getting like maybe like out of control and risking a lot. So yeah, that's a pretty good advice. Do you have like potentially like a last thing to share like with people there?
Mobile V2 is going out today with Wallet Connect, on-ramp and off-ramp providers, and a few other like performance improvements. So please, guys, feel free to try it and give us some feedback. We'd love to.
Oh yeah. So on the App Store, Android Store, is like Control, like CTRL Wallet.
CTRL wallets on both the Google Play Store and the iOS.
And yeah, for sure, like please check this out. They have like kind of like a very good like abstracted view. It's something that very unusual when you use like a wallet. You don't have like chain by chain. You have like one asset. All the chain behind is like kind of like one single like vision like for all your assets. It's pretty good. It's very efficient. If you look at the social logging as well, like it's just like 10 seconds just like to create an account. It's very fast. And if you use the desktop wallet, I think as an ex-Ledger, I can say it's basically the best onboarding like with a Ledger wallet. So congrats on that. Very efficient. I very think you will kill this multi-chain market, which is kind of like evolving like with all the blockchain like popping up. So it's pretty good to have a good solution to manage like all of that. Thank you for coming, Emile. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And hopefully we see you soon again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
See you.